Caleb here at the Rosa Workshop. Today I've got this 1920s Gibson mandolin. I've already got it taken apart for the most part. I'm trying to get through it pretty quickly. One of the biggest problems with this mandolin, you can see the back's coming off. The customer has a few other requests with it, but I think first and foremost we're going to get this back glued on. So I'm going to set it down and start looking at getting that done. Well, looking in this crack, it looks like we've got something kind of smeared all along the outside, and it looks like it's on the inside. So my guess is somebody tried to fix this before with whatever this dark stuff is. So I'm going to have to clean that off so I can get a good wood-to-wood connection before I glue it up. Another thing that's going to make this a little more difficult is this doesn't line up. This needs pressed in, and out here you can see like this. Then the bottom overhangs out here. So this needs to come out and this needs to go in. It's not going to be the easiest glue up. I think we'll see what we can do. Well, you can see I got it sitting between my legs so I can kind of have control over it. I've got it wedged open and I'm cleaning out all the old glue and dirt and such. Just trying to get it clean. I got a lot of this to do, so I'm not going to film it all. I just thought I'd show you how I was going about it. Well, I've just about got it all cleaned out. It's still got a little bit in there, but it's a whole lot better than it was. I've taken it over to Jerry. He said that this was probably epoxy that they filled it with. But he was looking at it, and the way that it lines up, or moreover the way that it doesn't line up, and it's just not wanting to go back to where it will. He said it's probably next to impossible to do this by hand, to get glue in it and get it clamped up that way. So what we're going to have to do is come up with some way to attach a clamp this way. The problem is that up here there's not a flat surface where a clamp will sit. It'll just slide off regardless of where we put it. So we're probably going to have to build something to sit up here to give us something flat to get a clamp on, just to get this side piece pulled in to line up with the back. It's going to be a little bit of work to get this to where we can even think about putting glue in it. I'll show you what we come up with. Well, here's what we came up with. We've got this board the mandolin neck is going through. It's kind of carved out so that it would slide all the way up against the body. The heel of the neck is hitting on the inside, but so are kind of the shoulders of the body. So it's pretty solid up here. We've actually got it clamped up to the point in which it's almost perfect back here. You can see there's just barely a lip left. And we've got this under a lot of pressure, so I think we're going to leave it like this to kind of relax to this so that it's not so jarring to glue it in. So we're going to leave it to kind of sit for maybe a couple hours. It really has pulled this into a much closer to the shape that it should be. So I'm going to leave it sit before we glue it up and bring you back before we do any more. I'm just about ready to start gluing this thing up. When we just had this long clamp on there, it was pretty good, but I kind of wanted a little better, so I went ahead and got this red and gray one here, and I clamped it this way. It's kind of pulled it in. I think it's real close, and it's about the same all the way around, and I think that's probably as good as I'm going to get it. It's just clamped up dry right now, so I think I'm going to start looking at putting glue in this. I'm going to get these clamps ready first. Got a few, but I don't think I have quite enough ready. If I can get them on there. But yeah, I think I'm just about ready to start looking at glue. Well, this Gibson mandolin has been drying overnight. I think we're ready to start taking clamps off. Actually, I think I'm going to start with these so I can keep the pressure downward. It's unclamped. Now all I have to do is release it from our clamping jig, I guess. Well, there we are, unclamped. It's a little bit of a mess. It can take some cleaning up, but that's what I'm gonna get to doing, and start cleaning up this stuff that came out. I'll get a little ways along and I'll show you what it looks like. Well, you can see the back of this mandolin. This is what it's looking like right now, and it's not really looking real good. It's looking pretty bad, but it's starting to feel pretty good. I'm not too worried about these light spots. I really think we can dye those back to match. But it's really starting to feel where you wouldn't even know that I had done anything. So getting that black epoxy off has been a real fight. I've been taking my round-ended X-Acto knife and just kind of scratching, just trying to pick off that black epoxy, because it's what really has, it's got a different feel when you're to feel it, and it's really not very good looking. I'm trying to get it off. It's just gonna take a little bit more scraping. I'm gonna see if I can't get to where I'm happy with it, and I'll bring you back and show you what it looks like. Well, you can see I went ahead and just dyed it all back to a dark red, just like the rest, and honestly, unless you catch it in the right light, it's hard to see that it's even been done. I think it's looking pretty good. I think now that I've got this kind of filled back in and the back attached, I'm gonna start turning my attention to the frets and the fretboard. I don't know if I can show it to you well. These frets are really worn. There's nice big grooves where all the strings go. So I'm gonna have to just pull them and put new ones in. So I think that's what I'm gonna start on next, is getting these frets out of here.
Ever since the days of old, man has searched for wealth untold. They dig for silver, pan for gold, and leave the empty hole. Way down south in the Everglades, where the black waters roll and the saltgrass sways, the eagles fly and the otters play in the land of the Seminole. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy, across the home of the Seminole, the alligator and the gar. Progress came and took its toll, and in the name of flood control, they made their plans and they drained the land. Now the glades are going dry. Last time I walked in the swamp, I stood upon a cypress stump. I listened close and I heard the ghost of Osceola cry. So blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again.
Well, it's got some pretty bad fingernail grooves in here, so I am gonna try to sand those out a little bit and get the board, make sure the board's level that way. Before I do that, I'm gonna try and knock this nut out. It's pretty short, it might be kind of hard to hit. I think if I can get something to latch on the edge. Ta-da! There's the old nut. Now I'm going to work on making sure this board is flat and level. Well, there's a cleaned up fretboard. Except for maybe one or two tiny portions of the grooves. I've gotten rid of all of them and it's nice and flat. Looks real good too. I think next thing I need to do is start looking at getting some frets.
I'm calling to you like a long lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Micanopy, across the home of the Seminole, the alligator and the gar.
Well, last time you saw this mandolin, I was either getting ready to start putting frets in or I was starting to put frets in. I ran into all sorts of issues along the way doing that, but to catch you up to where I got to, I've got all the frets in, I've got them started just getting flushed to the edge of the neck and the binding. I had a lot more chip out putting the frets in than I did taking the frets out, so I've filled them and I've dyed the whole board brown again. There's a couple spots where I've got frets kind of coming up on the sides. I'm pressing them in and gluing them in, so I'm still cleaning up some super glue. But that's what I'm doing, and that's where I'm at. Well, I think I'm just about ready to give these new frets a light leveling. I've got most of the super glue cleaned up between them, so I'm going to do this so we can get moving on with this thing.
Blow, blow, Seminole wind, blow like you're never gonna blow again. I'm calling to you like a long lost friend, but I know who you are. And blow, blow from the Okeechobee all the way up to Mary. across the home of the Seminole, the alligator and the gold.
Well, as you just saw, I got these frets leveled and crowned. I got a little help from Jerry on making sure they were level. They are level, they're crowned. I've polished them up with the 600. I even went through and cleaned up in between the frets, made sure they were all good and clean with the razor blade. Now, before I go on to setting this thing up, I'm going to work on trying to get this little hole in the headstock filled. There, you can really see it. So I'm going to see if I can't find a dowel that'll fit in there. It should be really easy to blend it because we got black on the front and black on the back, so it should blend fairly easily. Not trying to match any wood grain. So I'm going to see if I can find a dowel, and then I'll show you what I end up with at least. Well, I've found this dowel. It fits in the hole, and I've already removed this piece, and it's still a little large. That's okay. I think I'm going to try to get it to where I think it's going to be flush on the front and trim off the extra on the back. Well, you might be able to see it. I got that new little piece in there. It's glued in, and I gotta say that it's already looking better now with something in there rather than just the empty hole. But we're gonna do some better than this. I'm gonna get some wood filler, fill it, make sure it looks all full, and we're gonna make it black to match. So that's what I'm gonna get on doing next.
I can't be your fool anymore, darling. It's just not right to treat my...
Well, while I was working up here, I went ahead and took this truss rod cover off. And on the inside, the side that was facing down, I found somebody, probably named Earl, went ahead and scribed Earl Lay on this truss rod cover. It looks like it was done by hand, so probably the owner at some point. It was facing downward, so my guess is when the next owner got it, they just flipped it over so they didn't have to see old Earl's name there. And that's the way it was on, so that's the way I'm going to put it back on. Well, before we can get strings on it, it needs a new nut because the old one's going to be too low with the new frets. So I started working on a new nut blank for this mandolin. But while I was trying to clean out this slot, I noticed that this binding came loose. So I've got this super phatic glue I'm going to use to get it glued back in there. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to see if I can't fix these couple of binding spots that have come up. So hopefully I'll get all the binding fixed in one go. Well, you can see I got my nut glued on here. I've also got the beginnings of the slots cut. I went and did that with this fret saw, had them marked with a pencil, and just started them with this. I think it's easier to start them with this because you have a little bit more control, so you're not wandering this way. But now that they're started, I can move over and start using the fret files, well, the nut files, and actually get them to the right size width-wise.
Heart this way, I can't be your fool anymore, darling. A fool is what I'll be if I stay. I can't cry for you anymore.
Well, you can see I got all the strings on it, and I got all the slots cut so that my 18 thousandths pick sticks in there real well. So my next step is to start tuning this thing up, making sure the bridge height is right, making sure the intonation is right. So I'm gonna get my tuner and start tuning her up. Well, I got the mandolin all tuned up, and the action's sitting pretty low up at the top. I need to start checking intonation to make sure it's intonated well. And once I get it intonated well, it's just about finished. I can get the pick guard and put the pick guard back on. You can see I've already put on the cover on the tailpiece. It says the Gibson. I went ahead and took the semi-chrome polish to this and the truss rod cover a little while ago, just to make sure these chrome parts are shiny as they can be. I think we're in pretty good shape for the shape we're in, so I'm gonna start checking the intonation and making sure the bridge is in the right spot. Well, I've got this mandolin nice and intonated. It was a little sharp, you might be able to see that I've moved the bridge back. There's just a little bit of mark from where it was. I don't know if you can see it very well, but it's come back. Not a whole lot, just a little bit, but it's pretty well intonated now. And I'm gonna do the next step a little out of the usual order. This mandolin does have a pick guard that goes with it, and we do have it. I'm gonna do my playing before I put the pick guard on, because the pick guard is really old and would be really hard to replace if it got damaged. So I want to put that on last thing, and then it'll be totally finished. So I'm gonna play it now and let you hear how it sounds. Well, that's how she sounds. Now let's put the pick guard on this thing and finish it up. So I've got the pick guard now, and I don't think I showed this earlier in the video, but you can see it says patented March 30th of 09, and that would be 1909, to give you an idea how old this is and how hard it would be to replace if it were damaged. So this pick guard, it attaches and with two little nails up in the fretboard. You see there's actually 3 dots here, but it's these 2 outer dots that it connects to, and it connects with this little nail into the bridge itself. There's a little hole in there. So I'm going to very, very carefully try to get this thing back on. I might have to get a better grip on this, so I might have to move the camera. Just kind of very carefully pushing and wiggling it back and forth, and it's going in. I think we're just about there. So once I got all those little nails in, this piece on the side should be able to latch onto the back. And you just turn this down and it kind of stretches them and puts tension on it. Holds it still. This says patented July 4th, 1911. I don't know if you'll be able to read it. Right here it says patented July 4th, 1911. So there we are. Quite a bit of work to this mandolin. If you remember, the back here, the back was totally detached from the top, and it was all just plastered with that black epoxy. We cleaned that off and cleaned the epoxy out of the join. We glued it back up together. We had to push in on the sides to get it to line up well. We put all new frets in here. We got a good setup on it. We fixed that little hole and dyed this little dowel we put in black. You can hardly tell it at a distance. I mean, if you weren't looking for it, you probably wouldn't notice. And regardless, it looks better than it did. Got the new antler nut to match the new fret height. I think this thing's gonna be a pretty good mandolin for a little while longer. I'm gonna let Jerry take one more good look at this, make sure it's totally finished, and then we'll put it back in its case and it'll be done. I hope you enjoyed this mandolin video. Thank you for watching. If you could leave us a thumbs up, that'd really help. And if you haven't subscribed already, please do.